You are listening to Let's Talk About Ethics with me, Evie Wentink. Today's guest is Tom Hardin, author of Wired on Wall Street. We'll be talking about ethics, organizational culture, leadership pressures, and how the real world consequences of decisions made when integrity takes a back seat. This conversation is for you, and you won't want to miss it.
Hello, this is Evie Wenting. Let's talk about ethics. And we are on today with Tom Hardin. So, in today's conversation, is one that I think every leader in ethics and compliance should hear. We often think of ethical failures happen because of one bad decision, one bad actor, but in reality, misconduct usually develops slowly through pressure, normalization, incentive, and culture. So I'm super excited to welcome Tom Hardin to my podcast. Tom is also known as Tipper X. He was at the center of one of Wall Street's largest insider training investigations and now speaks to organizations about ethics, accountability, leadership, and culture. His book, Wired on Wall Street, offers an honest look at how ethical drift happens long before laws are broken. Today, we're going to talk about the company culture pressures, rationalization, and the role of leaders and managers they play in shaping ethical behavior. So, Tom, thank you so much for joining me today, and let's talk about ethics.
So, thank you for
Welcome.
having me, Evie. It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yes, excellent. So I want to start. I actually had to write this quote down from your book. And I think that was the first one as I'm reading the book that struck me. And you wrote, I knew the game. Make it look cleaner, tighter, more investable. Don't lie. Just omit, polish. It wasn't fraud, but it wasn't quite ethical. That line, when I was reading it at the beach in Curacao, was like, wow.
Yeah, no, thank you. So that line is from, I grew up in Georgia, middle class kid, left the South, I was a good student, was accepted to an Ivy League school and started working on Wall Street going back 25 years now. That shows my age. That scene was my first job in investment banking, which was 100-hour weeks, high pressure, but you learn a lot. You work about 10 years in 2 years if you stay the whole program. And what we're doing in that scene is I'm a junior analyst. I'm the lowest person on the totem pole, 22 years old, and we are taking our client public through an IPO. So our job as bankers is to make the numbers look as good for the public as they can, because that will help the company get a higher valuation and raise more money. Still 25 years later, what banks do today.
Okay.
And the challenge was for me in those meetings, as I was describing, the managing director, so the person 3 levels above me, the vice president, the associate, all above me, were trying to figure out how to make those numbers look good, but also stay within the gap accounting, legal guardrails, but push that line. And so at 22, I'm in here and seeing it's all about pushing that line, making it as high as we can, but like it's a gray area. And there was one number that we all had to focus on called EBITDA, which people are familiar with accounting. That's the earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization. That's your operating income. And there's adjusted EBITDA, where you take all the bad stuff out and try to make it look really good. And there's a lot of nuance around how we do that. And so any accountant listening will, or somebody with background will understand that. And I described adjusted EBITDA, getting that number as high as possible, which is a real gray area, was like turning I think a 200 car pileup into a Disney parade. That's what we're trying to
Right.
do. And as you said, polish, adjust it. And Evie, I'm not gonna. There was no speak up culture. There was nothing about pushing
Well,
back. That was just like, I'm not speaking up. I'm 22. If I say anything, they're all gonna look at
so
me. What am I gonna do?
that's actually, so we're
Yeah,
about the same age, I want to say, right? So
yeah,
I learned about ethics and compliance about the same time, and the speak up culture wasn't what it is today. So we have to make the distinction, right? But
exactly. Yeah.
but I am wondering, what kind of a training were you getting at that time when it comes to ethics and compliance, if any? Did your company have a hotline? Was your manager ever talking to you about what not to do or ever stopped you from doing those kind of questions are really important to understand. What did it look like back then?
Yeah, no, at 22, it was just right into the fire. There was no, There was onboarding. So every bank has the 1 or 2 weeks of onboarding for new employees. I'm sure there was a compliance presentation, but definitely the compliance person. No offense. No, I have a lot of friends in compliance, but at the time it was like not memorable, nameless, faceless, sort of the classic, again, 25 years ago, compliance professional who had no status, nothing. It was not memorable. I remember at onboarding, they just had speakers come in who had massive success, right? And that's what you want to hear at 22. I could be that person. That's what we're about. We're striving. Our loyalty, when you think about the ethics, it often comes down to what's your loyalty to? Is it to the client? Is it to gap accounting? Is it to the firm? Our loyalty, it was explained to us, was to our client and to make those numbers look as good as possible for the client. So sometimes in these ethical dilemmas, it's who are we actually trying to be loyal to? And so it was explained to us very clearly that we are here for our client and only for our client. And we will do whatever it takes for the client. So that was how loyalty was framed. And then for the client, we have to make those numbers look as good as possible.
Wow. So there is really a lot of pressure to try to do the best for your client almost for whatever in whatever means were necessary, and that's really scary, right? Because you have the pressures and very little of organizational values. Let's not break the law, right? Let's be ethical. And we talk about ethics here, and you said some of the things you did were still within, they were in the gray areas, and I feel like that's not the illegal, but it's not ethical. That's where the conversation is being driven today. So, what do you think would help you as your 22-year-old self getting into this and seeing how important the business is and seeing the client first kind of pressures? What do you think it would help you to make sure that you stay on the right side of things?
Yeah. And again, another term that's big today is psychological safety. There was no discussion about that. So I think if we could just look back at, but try to get lessons for 2026, like actually when you onboard now the next generation, the next 22-year-old, hey, if you're not sure, it's okay to ask clarifying questions and maybe not in the whole group there to slow things down, but maybe to your direct report. Yes, compliance is there, but also having that relationship like, hey, the guy a few years older than me, it sounds like we're just trying to get this as good as possible, but stay within the legal or guardrails. But we're either uncomfortable or I just want clarification, like asking clarifying questions. And then maybe he could go up or something like that. Just have that. I think having an outlet like, hey, I'm not quite comfortable with this, but I know I'm the low man. So I know you guys, the managing director is 42. So he's 20 years older. Clearly, he's done this whole career and he's doing great. So, okay, this is okay. But to me, I think I have some questions here about where we might be overstepping, but having that relationship maybe with my direct manager. And then, okay, if we had to talk to compliance or something, but I think almost going to compliance, there would have been a stigma. Oh my gosh, now am I derailing the deal at 22? I'm not blowing the whistle. And it was nothing to your point. It wasn't illegal. It was just like,
You
okay,
weren't
I'm not sure.
sure.
So I think for psychological safety, that hey, tell the young people, please ask clarifying questions. We're almost, yes, there's a hierarchy, but we're also partners for our clients. We want the best outcome for our clients, but we don't want to be breaking laws. So ask clarifying questions. Let's reframe what we're trying to do, reframe the issue. Let's get the bigger picture. All right, we want the highest valuation possible. What's the best way we can do that and stay more within what we should be doing?
Right.
So working backwards. But I think just being able to have like the term is like courageous conversation, but not even like courage
Oh,
because it almost feels like you have to do too much. I mean, I have to be courageous. No, you just have to ask some questions.
yeah, no, that's
Yeah,
excellent point. From where I see it, yes, you need to have a compliance program, good framework, but if you have the culture in the organization that it's okay to come to your manager, so open door policy, which is what I advocate for, right? That is okay to have these conversations and bringing up issues because they may be tiny issues and something that manager could handle at the beginning. But if you don't, then you find yourself where you did that it didn't get stopped and you just found yourself in your predicament with FBI tapping on your shoulder, which must have been really
yes.
scary. I can't even imagine your heart must have probably dropped. So, in order for our young people to prevent that from happening, ask questions, right?
Ask
Um,
clarifying questions. Yeah, and get outside your own head. I think reframe the issue, and I think respectfully too. Like you can challenge, and we'll get to it. When I went to the hedge fund, my boss comes in and is like, "Now we have to make money every month." I should have said, "Hey, boss, I'm still 28. I was still quite young." The way I heard it was we're going to do whatever it takes to make money every month, whether it's legal or not legal, because getting to the insider trading later in my career, we told ourselves everybody's doing it, right? Are we going to stop there? I just want you to, this is the way I heard it. I'm not accusing you, boss, of telling me to break the law, but this is the way I heard it. And again, like you said, ask clarifying questions. Like, big takeaway.
Another thing that I noticed in your book, and I don't remember the exact line, was at one point you made the bad trade and then you met with your boss and in your mind you expected him to say something, but he didn't. I thought that was telling of the culture too. So if you find yourself in a position where you're hearing something that is wrong, you have to say something or bring it to someone else's attention. But can you talk about that? Like
Uh,
what was the
so
circle?
eventually I got to the hedge fund industry and I loved it, but I also became aware that there was this culture of insider trading. And I received a tip again from a woman who I knew was an analyst. And I bought the stock. I bought a small amount. I told myself everybody's making millions as I went through a lot, just my own rationalizations. And then to your point, I thought, you know what? If my boss has a problem with this and it actually happens as she's described, he'll say something. But as I walked through that process, I put the order in. Maybe it's a rumor. And then the one day it actually happens publicly, Evie, I thought, oh my God, I'm going to get fired because I clearly broke the law and it's not going to be good for me. I go in that morning meeting and you're right. We're going through our stock portfolio, probably 20 stocks we owned. What should we do? And this one stock on the illegal tip, he's, whoa, it's one of those. Keep me out of it. So he's being woefully blind. He's not asking about my short term success at all. And so he's actually creating almost a cover story for himself. Keep me out of it. So that's not how you to be a good leader, right? So that's not the way to do it.
So if you're a manager in this situation and you see something on your team, speak up. Put the person aside and have a conversation and then go to legal and figure it out a way how to handle the situation. Because the longer you let something like that go, the worse it is. I have a personal experience in the company that I worked in with an antitrust violation. And what happened in that case was really wild, where the president of the company didn't actively participate. He didn't even get to the company when it started with this antitrust deal going down. But because he didn't say anything, he was indicted for 60 months in prison, which was really wild. It was first one of these, and this was going back in 2012 when that happened. And at that time, it was the longest sentence. So there is really something to be said about staying quiet and not disclosing those kind of things. Another, I guess I wanted to talk about another line that you had made where you said, you know, you think insider trading is about greed, but for me, it's not. For me, it was about belonging. So can you talk about it? So we talked about the culture, right? They allowed it to happen. They
Uh,
were blind to it. And then now you want to fit in, right?
yeah. It was really, and I describe it in the industry 20 years ago, there was these factions of people who would share the information back and forth, sometimes divided by ethnic groups. It was like I call it the Indian mafia, Chinese mafia. There was a Boston mafia, people actually geographically. And I'm not in any mafia, right? 20 something Tom is a good analyst. I'm doing my work legitimately. But I also became aware that these people had status and I didn't have that status. So one of the lines was like, I think I'm looking through the clubhouse trying to figure out the secret handshake, right? I want to be a part of that group because they're the ones with status. And so when I got that tip and it worked out and my boss was saying, keep me out of it, the next conference I went to, I walked over to that group and they're like, why are you here? I'm like, hey, I knew about Kronos and I know about the next one coming.
Trying to
And
fit
they
in.
put their arm around me, like, now you're one of us. So it was more about, as a young man, I think being very insecure because these people had the status and hey, they were cheating to get ahead.
Mhm.
But once I was in that in group, it was more like now I stuck my chest out. Now I have the information. Now I'm one of you. And clearly, as people read the book, they'll see it wasn't about the money for the amount of money I made. It was
Yeah, that was
no,
my next question,
yeah,
actually.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
you
with
can,
the
if
status. Yeah,
yeah, if you can talk about the money, because even in the antitrust case, in the
yeah,
bottom line, it was not about the money. Was it
yeah,
prestige? Was it status? I guess ego. That was wild. So how much money did you make
yeah.
on your illegal trades that, and was it worth it?
So on the four trades, my firm made $1 million, but my share of that, what I personally saw was $46,000. And you think about the price of my career at 29 years old, the price of my professional suicide, I called it, was $46,000. And when I share this story today, people, I'll ask the audience, what do you think I made before I say it? And they'll guess millions. I'm like, millions, that would be a bad guy. I would never try to do that. I would try to just make just enough to be in the group. And so it was that. And I never thought about the money. Clearly, it wasn't the risk reward in that trade was it's not worth it. But I think sometimes young people, you don't see the iceberg underwater. I saw maybe the $46,000 above water, but below water, your career, your reputation, a felony, lifetime earnings. So I mentioned right at the end of the book, there's one professor that does that calculation. I'm like, please don't show me this because it's really makes me sick on that career, what I would have made. It would have been millions of dollars, right? So
Right.
$6,000. And they'll be like, why'd you do it? Great question. We talked about status, rationalizations, everything, but it's often small numbers. Even in May last week, when we're recording this, there was a big insider trading scandal through law firms, and one of the cooperators made $37,000. Like it's
Yeah.
almost the same thing,
And
and had a great law firm job.
And I think that's
Yeah.
what something young people have to realize because in my part, that's one of my favorite reasons why I'm in this business is having a conversation with young people and to make them believe that compliance is not just a boring word, that there's a really good reason for it and it's there to protect you as a person, but it's also there to protect the company, it's there to protect the public, the product, whatever it is, it's there for good reason, and they just have to know the reason for doing something not the right way. It will, the reward is short term, short lived, and the consequences are long lasting, right?
Yeah, I think chief career protector is something I threw out at Compliance Week last week, and I saw a few people write it down. I haven't seen their titles change, but I think if anybody wants to steal it from me, go with
Nice.
it. Chief
You can
career
make a
protector.
t-shirt,
Just
chief career
exactly.
protector.
That
I
should
like
be our
it.
next conversation,
Yeah,
right?
I like it. Oh,
You're
make
right.
you a t-shirt and put your name on
Yeah.
it. Oh, this one
No,
has
thank
mine.
you. Tipper X, yeah, it's chief career protector. Because you're right, it's a partner to the success of the business. And sometimes I worry, Evie, that people, the business only tells compliance what they think compliance needs to know. And that's not helpful because all what's going to happen is your compliance officer will be in prison with you. It doesn't help anyone, right? So come to them. They can help you only if they know what you're trying to deal with, what decisions you're dealing with. And yeah, you might have to say no, but hey, at least get back to people and say, always come to me. I'm commercial. I know the business has to move forward, but I'm also here to protect you in your career to make sure we're all safe.
Yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
amazing advice for all the young people to not only be compliant in the finance world, but in any world because it really touches all of us. So I definitely love and appreciate this conversation. I am really excited about next week. We are getting together on Thursday in Morristown to do a book signing and meet and greet with the New Jersey Compliance Network. So we are excited and we hope everybody can join us here today. But you have any last words and comments for me?
No, feel free to reach out to me, tipperx.com. I just found out I have the trademark on TipperX. I found out from the US Patent Office last month. So the next cases will be Tipper Y. So I'm out there, tipperx.com. I'm trying to really be of service today, just sharing this story as I've been doing the last 10 years for people to think about. I would always tell people every choice has a consequence. And eventually we become our choices as people that read the book will see I became that. And then also, I think for me today, sharing the story, my or anybody's scars can become your service. So many people have reached out who have read the book, who have been going through something terrible in their own life, just try to get something from it on the good side of it, the bounce back.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. I look for more conversation about ethics, compliance, and everything in between. You have a great story to tell and a lot of, I'm sure, anecdotes that had happened throughout the time you've been living that. But maybe the next one is what does your life look now? And I know you've done a lot of speaking engagements, but I'm curious to dive into that a little bit more. So thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks, Evie. Pleasure.